Welcome to the TryPod. We break down the NRL every game, every week from a punting perspective. It's Winnie here, joined by Clarkey. Wait a minute, that's not Clarkey. We've got a special guest, Nicole. You know Nicole well, great friend of the show. And Clarkey was at that Raiders Knights game where the Raiders went down by 4 points, which I was happy to see with a Knights best bet of -3.5. So I'm glad to be on the right side of a half-point result there, which did actually give us a winning weekend of best bets again. That was 3-2, won the mixed matchup comfortably as well. Didn't win either of the same gamers, but that's the housekeeping, the wrap up. But it's a long season, guys. I feel like you hear a lot from me, so I actually wanted Nicole to do most of the talking tonight. So I welcome you in, mate. How you going? How did you go with your punting results this weekend?
Ooh, I wish you hadn't asked that. Not a great round for us, try score wise. But the only thing that did go well was the toppy 2 out of 3 ain't bad. That was awesome with Jacob Gagai and I think Jason Saab, 2 of my 3. And I think they both scored first as well. Could have gone 3 from 3, but Khan Pereira didn't score. I was actually super confident on him, but it was a good round of footy. And I think you did mention that if people can get in the comments if they're seeing any Origin news breaking around selections. I think I'll just add very, very quickly. They did say that Murray Tuolungi, I saw earlier today, he's done a hammy, so he'll be out. And Dane Gagai just scored 2 tries and he played an epic game. So I'd be shocked if he's not somewhere in the 17.
Yeah, we'll probably touch on Origin selections, the same as you. I haven't really heard anything official. I was kind of expecting the Blues team could drop as we speak. And the only speculation will be who's taking Latrell's spot, right? And we can talk about what we saw of Tommy Turbo last night and, Bradman Best to Savo. But let us know in the comments, guys, if any news drops or if there's anything else you want us to touch on. Let's just zoom back. I don't have the normal graphics package from Clarkey, so I'm just going to use the badges that we used on Tuesday, which, had the line representing the game. It was the Rabbitohs 32 beating the Eels 16. And the line was only 1.5, and that was a best bet of mine, Rabbitohs -1.5. Nicole, you can take it any direction you want, how you saw the game, thoughts on these teams, players, whatever comes to mind.
Yeah, sure. I'll keep it pretty succinct as well. I think there's good news and bad news with this game. The good news is the Rabbitohs continue on their run. Look, it definitely wasn't a tip, but I got on them at 500 ones to win the premiership a few weeks ago, just for a bit of fun. But I think the bad news, and honestly, it's pretty sad news that Latrell Mitchell is out for a month and potentially the rest of the season with, I think they said Liz Frank, but it is. Whether it's 4 weeks or whether it's a season, they essentially needed to keep winning if there were any shot at making the finals and then obviously going deep into the finals. And I think with Latrell gone, like, the team is not, like, it's just the aura or the impact of him sort of around the team and everything. So I think unfortunately, it probably kills the buzz a little bit for the Rabbitohs. And I think for the Eels, it's time to say, see, if it wasn't already, season over. They also had Junior Paulo ruled out for the season. They've got Hopgood pretty much out for the season. If not, that I think that is confirmed as well. So unfortunately, Eels fans, season over. Mitch Moses is in a absolute purple patch. He looks so confident at the moment, but unfortunately, it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, I thought the Rabbitohs were pretty strong in this game, and it is such a shame because Latrell was awesome again on Friday night. As a Queenslander, I was looking forward to facing him in the decider, but also as someone that did back Souths at really long odds to make the 8. I was really enjoying this, and those Rabbitohs were a hard team to beat by anyone on Thursday night. And you couple that with the fact that Para's just in a total funk and lapses in concentration, errors, shooting themselves in the foot, but also giving up at that try. I think it was on the back of an error as well, but the Cody Walker try, there's 10 seconds to go in the first half, and actually Para gives up a try right at the end too, which decides whether the game goes over or under and the margin. So in reality, it was actually a little bit closer than the 16-point margin. Para had some really close calls, tries denied, but I would say that was just more desperation in the Rabbitohs defense, which went back to my handicap that I thought the Rabbitohs will be a little bit more dialed in and were the stronger team, and it played out that way. Sad times for Parramatta. Let's move to Friday because straight afterwards, a day later, I'm on a losing best bet. And, I can put my head up and say I got that wrong and I didn't see this score coming. The Titans, off the bye at Coffs Harbour, but beating the Cronulla Sharks 20-16, which is Cronulla's fourth loss from their last 5 weeks ago. They were top of the ladder. And now they're in danger of falling outside the 4. What's gone wrong with the Sharkies, Nicole, and what did you see in this one?
This is honestly the Titans and the Warriors this year. I can never predict what the hell they're going to do. I think there was a week there was around about 2 or 3 weeks ago when the Warriors beat the Panthers when they were massively under strength, and then the Titans beat the Broncos on the same day. There you go. It was a little while ago now, but some ridiculous set of results. And after that, I've honestly given up trying to tip, get on lines, all that kind of stuff around these teams. I think more succinctly with the Sharks, I think like this whole Nico Hines issue, I'm actually keen to hear what you say as well. But firstly, they had Daniel Atkinson on a wing, which is a bit of an odd selection. On top of that, like their forward pack, like you see their pack, and it's obviously pretty deep. But then they've had Finnecane retire. They've got Rudolph, I think, dropped to New South Wales Cup. ULA, I assume, injured. So I can't put my finger on exactly what it is, but I think it's a combination of like maybe Trindle being back and like Nico Hines trying to like recapture their partnership from last year. But whatever it is. And also, sorry, one last thing I'll say is I have sort of, and I don't know if this is a coincidence or like, one of those things where you talk yourself into believing this, but there was quite a bit of rain around that night as well. So I feel like whenever the rain comes into games, I know like footy fans say this, but I think it brings the team who was a huge underdog or like the unexpected team really, really into the game. And honestly, like I'm just looking at when the tries were scored again. It was 2-0 until Braden Trindle scored the first Sharks try 47 minutes into the game. So pretty like I know it was only a 4-point game in the end, but it was like a relatively comfortable win to the Titans.
And Clarkey's in the house, and he's going to be feeling pretty jubilant because we're talking about the Titans. So congratulations, mate. Clarkey loves them like no other, but I don't think Clarkey's any better at picking the Titans wins out either. I feel like he agreed with me that it was a tough spot facing Cronulla that had a really good record at Coffs and that has been in a rut. We've all seen it, but should have been a level above the Titans. And I tipped Cronulla -7.5, and that was before Brimson then got ruled out and Sammy also during the week. So all the more reason to be confident. Another bet where the line closes through a key number, further in our favour. But again, the similar story for Cronulla. Just sorry on Clarkey, though, I forgot to mention, and I should because we're tracking it now too. He did hit his Clarkey's collect as well, which was like a Panthers, Storm, Roosters. And I think he just tweaked the lines there, the 3-leg multi. And although he didn't pick the Titans, he would have been very proud of his team. Coming off the biggest win in club history, then a bye. You could forgive him for probably a flat spot, but the Titans started strong. And the issue with the Sharks is they're chasing the game, just like they were when they were down 22-0 to the Dolphins. I'm trying to think, it's happened a few times. Last game, right? The Sharkies were down 12-0 to the Bulldogs last time they played. And I can even think round one, they're down 12-0 before they blink against the Warriors, actually come back and win that. But it's a very bad habit. So you really think that a team would have a high focus on getting the start right. But it was a start from hell for Cronulla. I think they dropped it first set, and then the Sharkies were on their line. And basically, Cronulla didn't touch the ball till 15 minutes in, and they were already down 2 tries. And so definitely the Titans deserved to win, and I never felt confident with the cover. We never looked like covering because Cronulla never looked in control of the match. But they did have a chance to pinch it at the end, scoring with a few minutes to go, and then the fatigue setting in, and Cronulla has done it before, scored late, but the Titans hung on. So the Titans are just playing spoiler at this point. But Cronulla, on my take on Nico, he definitely doesn't look focused. This is half joking, half hot take. I think Nico needs to have a haircut. I know it's rich coming from someone like me, probably very jealous because he's got a luscious head of hair and mine's falling out with every best bet loss. But every time he makes a mistake, he's wiping the hair out of his eyes. He's always pulling his hair out of his face. But was his hair in his face that part of the reason he made the mistake? This team this team has only won one of the last 5, and the only win was against Brisbane, who have won none of the last 5. So they're really struggling, and it doesn't make sense to me because they've got no Origin players, and they were sitting top of the ladder, 5 or 6 weeks ago. So not really many excuses for Cronulla, and they're going to need to figure this out. One more thing I would say, Fitzgibbon seems to be this kind of guy that wants to be a career coach for 10 or 20 years. So he never overreacts. He stays really calm. I actually think this team might need a rev up. He might need to actually try and wake these boys up and be a bit more intense and be a bit more firm with them, because Sanders are slipping. Do you have anything else to say?
Yeah, I just want to say very quickly. Because I'm trying to, these games were obviously a couple of days ago, so I've got the try scorers in front of me, right? One thing that really, really surprises me. So, like for me, I don't really get on or bet on lines and totals all that often, or head to head. I've just learned not to use my opinion for those types of bets. But the one really interesting thing here is Kieran Foran scored a try in the 6th minute. Chris Randall scores in the 13th minute. Keenan Palacia scores in the 51st minute. If you're thinking the Titans score 20 points and upset the Sharks, who the hell is picking those 3 guys instead of Khan Pereira and David Fafita, right? In my mind, honestly, like if I was punting on emotion and opinion, I would have gone all in on David Fafita, and Khan Pereira was part of my 2 out of 3 at bad for Toppy. So I was very, very surprised. And for our try scorers, we had Randall first try scored 81s early in the week, and he scored 2nd, so that was heartbreaking for us. It was a late premium tip, but we had Palacia, and I think it was 91s to score the 3rd try, and he scores the 4th. So this was especially gutting, but just such a random, and I think that actually says something about the Sharks. I won't harp on about it, but if you've got these guys scoring tries, it's almost like you're slacking off, because the Sharks are the team that have scored the most tries through middle forwards this year. And you look at Cam McInnes, Blake Brayley, etc., like some really good sort of players, Hazelton, etc. Yeah, but then they're conceding to Chris Randall and Keenan Palacia. So yeah, super random, and definitely the Sharks need to get their shit together.
That's the type of game. I said Cronulla will still make top 4 if they win the games they're supposed to, but that's one of the ones they are supposed to win. Now, later Friday night, I bounced back with my best bet win, and I'm kind of happy to be on the side that didn't cover the game, but the way I executed it got up there, with my best bet being Brisbane plus 2.5 in the first half. I know you're going to see that line of 2.5, which was just prior to team list, but by the time we did the pod, that had actually moved to 4.5. Couple of reasons, but Katoni Staggs didn't end up, being named or in the 17 or playing. So the line was 4.5. I could have gone Brisbane plus 4.5. I thought they would cover the game. I thought they had a real chance to win, but I took the first half line just as well. Brisbane scores their only try in this game in the first half, and I think the only reason they covered the first half is just thanks to one moment of brilliance. And I did kind of call for this, and I said, I don't bet on Brisbane often, but this feels like the game where Reece Walsh is going to do something special. I just hope it's in the first half and he has that moment. I think I win my better same game at $19 if Cobbo scores, and Reece Walsh slices knife straight through the line, only Edwards to beat, and Cobbo is right on his hip. But Walsh is too good and too fast. He just burns Edwards around the outside. Cobbo went so close later in the game, and I had the Broncos first half. What else? Broncos to have a lead. And neither team to score 3 unanswered tries, So we went close again. I mean, relatively close. But look, special moment by a special player, Reece Walsh, in a strong first half by Brisbane. I expected nothing less, because that was such an important game for Brisbane, which is why I was ultra impressed by Penrith and the professionalism and, the match-winning play and the game that embodies what this team's about is actually just before the try scoring play. There's a shift and a kind of half line break by Penrith. Very slick backline play on 4th tackle. 5th tackle bomb goes up. Who catches it? None other than Liam Martin. Gets it to Lindsay Smith, who then puts it on the boot through to To'o, and that broke Brisbane's halves, and Brisbane never quite recovered after that, and Penrith won 14-6. What were your thoughts?
I was shaking my head there, because every time a winger scores, part of my soul slowly dies, as you probably know with a lot of my tips on middle forwards. And to see a middle forward like Lindsay Smith Don't want to say anything disrespectful, but geez, he doesn't look like the type of guy who can grub her for a kick, but obviously he does that, and a bloody winger scores first try in the second half. But no, like one really interesting bit of detail about this game. So in the 1 hour update, they rested Taruva. I've got to say rested because there's no way, I don't think he would have been dropped. So I'm assuming that he was rested. And they're bringing Dane Laurie. So now I'm just thinking from your tips point of view, you're saying, all right, cool, okay, late team change. Laurie, actually, I think he did his hammy or he had like some sort of injury. He goes off early, well, like literally in the first 10 minutes because Jack Cole comes on for him at left center. Alamotti goes to the right wing. All makes a line break, wraps around, passes to Cole. Cole scores in the corner. Like, frustrating as hell from my point of view with all of our try-score tips being on middle forwards. But even more so, like I'm thinking from like you said you're super impressed with the Panthers. Imagine being the Panthers, you're going, no Nathan Cleary, you're going to Suncorp to play the Broncos. You lose one of your sort of backmen in the first 10 minutes. You get a half playing at left center, your left center going to the right wing, and then you hold on for a 14-6 win. So I think it's extremely impressive by the Panthers, which kills me to say because, like, I want the Broncos to go on a run. I want them to be in and around the top four, and we want these two teams to play it off in the busy end of September. But the Broncos, they need it's like the Sharks. They're just in a bit of a rut. And I don't the latest on Adam Reynolds, I don't know if he was meant to come back around round 22. I was listening to one of the podcasts and they were saying it could be delayed a little bit. There's nothing confirmed, but geez, they need him back.
Yeah, we're round 18, and that's roughly what I was expecting. I'm thinking Reynolds is about a month away, but you just don't know. That's the difference between Brisbane and Cronulla. I mean, Cronulla's got the better ladder position. Brisbane has the hope that there are, star players still to return, and they'll get through Origin and they'll get that consistency. Like I said, Walsh has barely played a part in this team for 5 or 6 weeks, and when he finally plays, he played pretty well. But it was against Penrith. There's only so much you can do. When Penrith's that good, I don't think anyone can really beat them. Exactly. And albeit there's no Nathan Cleary there, which is just so scary for the rest of the competition. The comp's, well and truly on notice. When Cleary comes back into this team, they are the stronger favourites to win 4 in a row. But Brisbane, that's 5 losses in a row, right? They already were outside the 8. They're now further outside the 8 after that loss. It's extremely tough times. I did look closely at some futures this week, and I was staring at Brisbane. They were $1.50 to make the 8 and $2.80 to miss. And I was going $2.80 to miss the 8. The reason I kind of liked that was there's a lot of teams either in or outside the 8 that have a good chance, and multiple good teams are going to miss. Like, I look at the ladder, and I'm looking at so many teams that I really think if everything went well for them, these would be teams that could win a finals game. I mean, if the Rabbitohs could keep going, but that was before the Latrell injury. Like, no one wants to play the Rabbitohs in the finals, right? If the Warriors went on a run, I know they lost a heartbreaker. We'll talk about that soon. But, like, the Warriors could win a finals game if everything went well for them. The Cowboys, the Knights with Ponga back. Brisbane's outside the 8. Manly, now Turbo's back. You got the Dogs are having such a great season. The Dolphins are having great, so there's going to be 4 or 5, like let's say at least 4 good teams miss the 8, right? So I was looking at that Brisbane, but I didn't play it. I looked at their draw. I said, I reckon they've got a decent chance against Penrith, but even if they lose to Penrith, it seems to me like Brisbane's too good and there are enough winnable games that Brisbane will get there. However, again, you talk about Reynolds a month away. Jock Madden did his hamstring in this game. Like, he's going to be out long term, so they're going to have to dip, outside their top 30. Patrick Carrigan played the majority of this game on an edge, just not as effective of a player. I could see him really being tested out, kind of shifting laterally as Penrith slides the ball from side to side, and then Penrith turn their forwards back in underneath, and Carrigan could never really shoot out of the line and tackle with force, which is one of his strengths. So that's an issue with Brisbane's depth right now being tested. Jordan Ricky should come back into this team next week, and they play the Dragons. That's very winnable. I shouldn't say very winnable, but it's winnable. Katoni Staggs, they never said the issue was. Whatever, it's a personal issue, but he's meant to be back this week at least. So Brisbane's kind of margin for error has gotten very thin at this point. Let's put it that way. Let's move to Saturday. Like, this was such an enthralling game. Saturday, early afternoon where the Bulldogs beat the Warriors 13-12. I mean, similar to just a week earlier, a game that also went to Golden Point that also ended on Matty Burton's field goal boot and was also, a 1 point margin. And this was equally exciting. So I was talking about 15-14, Dogs beat the Sharks last week, 13-12, Dogs beat the Warriors. And what do you say? Maddie, how does it go? Sing it with me if you know it. Matty Burton, he came from the Panthers. I'll try. If it comes to me, I'll do a better rendition. You better save me. You better tell me how you saw this one.
Oh man, I don't know that one unfortunately, but I think really interesting game. I think I'll just make one quick note on this one, which was I think again with this one, the Warriors had I can remember I think 2 guys injured, maybe even 3. Like by the end of the game, they had the Warriors. They had guys
lost
of position.
Both wingers and the fullback.
There you go. Yes, they had 2 to 3, or like let's just say 3 injuries. And I think the interesting thing by the Bulldogs is that who are they missing? They're missing Jacob Preston. They're always missing a forward at some point. But they were pretty much close to full strength. But regardless, the Warriors playing in Sydney, away from home, 3 injuries, and they kept this at 12-all. Both teams just could not ice the game late. And you can tell that these teams they're clearly sort of either struggling for depth or they're not used to winning and they're not used to being like they're clearly not a top 4 team, which is what I'm trying to say, or like they haven't been in the last couple of years with the Dogs, obviously having a few horrendous seasons in a row. But I think what like you got to get to the end is an inspiring fight by the Warriors to actually stay at 12-all for that long. But then Matty Burton and I don't know if you saw this one closely, by the way, the field goal, but he hit one where he hit the post and then he missed, and the one he got actually hit the post and then went through. So not too much more to add, but well done to the Doggies. And it's actually I had I forgot what you call these now, but I had a bet with someone on our Discord because he's always bagging. He actually comments on here. I forgot his name, Luke. I had a bet with him before this season. And his line for where the Dogs he thought would end up was the bottom 4. So if they didn't end up in the bottom 4, I would win. And they're actually closer to the top 4 than the bottom 4. So that's luckily quite going well for me. But really, I'm genuinely interested to see how the Dogs go. So I'm just looking at the ladder quickly. They are 5th and a win behind the Sharks and only 8 points behind on points differential. There's a realistic chance that the Dogs can make the 4. Because I think when Jacob Preston, I've been writing that article in the last few weeks, the left free right edge article, right? And early in the season, if you remember, they had that game against the Storm where Addo-Carr got a hat trick on the left wing, like in the first half. And I remember, because again, I don't bet on wingers much. I don't look at the game that way. So I remember thinking, oh, wow, Doggy's left edge, Burton, kick out, Addo-Carr. But then in the last sort of month or so when Preston was in the team, they've got Sexton now as the right half, and they've got Stephen Crichton, Carraz on the right wing, and Preston. And now that's actually quite an impressive right side as well. So I think when Preston comes back in a couple of weeks when they're fresh, I'm actually genuinely keen to see if the Dogs, they could legitimately be I was going to say in the 4, but I reckon it's only the 4th spot that's up for grabs. You've got Storm, Panthers, Roosters. I reckon the Dogs are a sneaky shot because they've got such good defense. Their attack is sort of hot and cold, but such good defense, and now they've got both edges in attack where they're quite impressive. So the Dogs could be sneakily the team to watch out for in the next few weeks.
Matty Burton, he came from the Panthers to the Bulldogs. There's nobody else like Matty Burton. I do all the chorus, but look, they can absolutely make the 4. It's one of those years where it's that tight. There's only a couple of wins between being 12th or 4th. So I felt that from the beginning of the year that a long shot could be in there. Just like last year, New Zealand was in the top 4. Nobody really saw that coming. The Knights came 5th and just ran out of time to not make the top 4, And that could be the Bulldogs. It feels like it's their year, getting all these narrow victories, everything's bouncing their way. And, like you said, they won off a field goal that hit the post last week, and that was after Nico missed from in front. And, of course, any game that goes to Golden Point, both teams are going to look back and say they could have won it. The Warriors had a couple of shots as well. It's a brutal loss for New Zealand because they got the win against Brisbane that they had to get. Bouncing back, Brisbane had several troops out and was really struggling. This was knowingly going to be a tough game for New Zealand, but they were up for it. And as you said, you cannot prepare for losing a winger in a game often, let alone two wingers and a fullback. You know, they had Capewell on a wing. They had the rookie front rower out in the centres and nearly scored an amazing try.
Yes.
And it would have been one of the great wins for the Warriors. They got that close and survived some shots by the Dogs as well. Burton had a couple that missed. As you said, Burton hit the post. But ultimately, the Dogs get that win. It has that feel of that type of season to them. And they're basically dead level with Cronulla. Got the head-to-head last week, though Cronulla did beat them earlier in the year. But you'd say right now the Dogs are going a lot better. And on to your point about defence, you know, as Ryan says, he's been tipping unders in Dogs games virtually every week. Last week, my best bet was against the Dogs, but I just tipped them under and it still won. They went under their team total and still won, but that's because they are defending so well. And the last point I've got to make, Jeremy Kerwin brings it up, the Warriors did get stiffed here because there's a late shot on Tamari Martin, and that's when the scores are level. And it's enough for Jamin Salmon to be put on report afterwards, but somehow not caught in the moment by the ref or the bunker. And it would have been, you know, shot at goal and victory to the Warriors. And it would have been such a meaningful victory for what New Zealand went through. But also, of course, they're also meaningful between these teams that are fighting for final spots. Such valuable, you know, wins and losses, and the margins can be fine. Moving later Saturday. Oh, sorry, I didn't switch up that graphic, which should have shown Dogs Warriors, and the line was around 6. And you know, I did say I had a lean to New Zealand plus 6.5. I ultimately didn't play that one because of the respect for the Dogs. You know, I probably would have won that best bet if I took it, but it's easy to say afterwards anyway. The next game was Storm Tigers, and, you know, talking about the line, which was 12.5 on Tuesday, it came into as low as 9.5. It lands on a margin of 12 thanks to a deflected kick on the siren where the Tigers score and get the ultimate backdoor cover. I know Clarkey told me he had Storm 13+. I'm sure he wasn't alone. So that is absolutely brutal. The Storm won this game 40-28 at Leichhardt. However, it was at one stage 12-6 to the Tigers and actually looked like it could be game on before Melbourne took control. What were your takeaways, Nicole?
Well, we did say we're going to have a short pod, and we've gone on this half an hour. I reckon this is one of the games that we could probably go a little bit shorter on. I reckon, from a try score point of view, I'll say one quick thing. Fanua Bole scored the last try in the game before the last minute of the game. Scored a try in the 18th minute here. So middle forward from Tigers has scored 2 tries in 20 minutes at that point. So I've been enjoying watching him. But yeah, honestly, aside from that, I reckon the Tigers, as you just said, like they scored, what was it? They were 12-6, did you say? Or 10-6 or whatever early in the game.
Yeah, it was 12-6 to the Tigers. And then next thing it was like
Storms go bang, bang, bang. Yeah. I think you could probably take out, like, I think from the Tigers' point of view, it's the story of their season. They keep trying. They keep doing all right, but they are just not good enough. The Storm, I thought the ease of which Eli Katoa went over for their first try told quite a bit. And it was actually really nice to see Sua Faulongo just go insane in the second half. I think he was playing on the wing, but his step it's almost like laughable how freakishly good he is. But yeah, not too much from my end for this game.
That's the other thing I'll touch on as well. I have to. Faulongo gets a double, and the greatest try he scored in this game didn't even count. He scored a length of the field try that was actually where he burned the whole Tigers team, that was actually overturned because there was a little brushed hand knock on before that as well. Yes. So he's frightening. I watch him and think he has to be a full-time fullback for an NRL team. And you have to have him and Pappenhausen both on the field. I mean, Pappenhausen scored the opening try too. He's no slouch. But longer term, there's got to be a club out there that tries to poach Faulongo. He is an absolute freak. And I told you the tale of this one. You know, the Tigers, given a reality check against the Roosters last week, come back home to Leichhardt. The Storm got a few out, including Harry Grant was held out again. And as I said, at 12-6, I thought, hey, this could be an interesting one. But once Melbourne really got going, I mean, again, there's not many players in the comp playing better form than Jerome Hughes. Now, Saturday night, last night, this one hurt me, but I've gone 3-2 this week. I took Brisbane in the first half, and they were in front 6-4, but they lost by 8. I took the Knights -3.5. They won by 4. So you can't get all the close ones. I had the Cowboys -1.5. They lost in Golden Point 21-20. Let us know, guys, what are your thoughts on Golden Point? Do people we had a couple of games go Golden Point. Some people hate that it becomes a field goal test. Would you change the rules? I think you often hear from the people that on the losing side, let it be a draw. I don't like Golden Point. I think the issue with if you make it golden try, what if the game just goes for too long? Is there a welfare issue? And I do prefer Golden Point to a draw. Interested in your thoughts, Nicole and others. But I lost my best bet, and I will say I think I picked the right team, and I believe that Cowboys got 20 points, left plenty on the table. I'm not saying everything went the Seagulls' way, and I know there was an opportunity or two missed, but I can swing back around to what really was grinding my gears watching my best bet narrowly go down last night. What stood out to you?
I think what stood out here from a Manly point of view is they definitely didn't nail it on the night, right? Like I'm looking at the try scores and Saab scored 3 and that was it. I think for future weeks though, it was a pretty good sign because they're still missing Paseka. Their hooker I don't know what's happening to Lockie Croker, but he's obviously not there. I feel like there's one other player that I'm missing at the moment, but I think, look, from a game point of view, I thought it was. Look, I actually thought it might be a low-scoring game before, and people were sort of having a go at me on our Discord saying, "Nah, this one's going to fly over." But I only said that because I thought these two teams would be really, really desperate. I don't have the ladder up, but I know that they're roughly within a game of each other. I think is that right? I think one's in the 8 and one. I think the Cows are in the 8.
They finished the ladder 7th and 8th.
There
so the
you go.
Cowboys, even though they lost, still in 8th.
Yes, yeah. So I think from a desperation point of view, it was going to be a super close game. I think the one note that I've got for this game is not actually from this game, but it's for future weeks. I think the coach would be silly to take Turbo out of the centers. So the reason I say that, right, you're going into round 19. There's still, 9 weeks left in the regular season. I assume the Seagulls have a bye at some point, right? Turbo's got to get through 8 games, and he might even be named in Origin, right? So he's got at least 8 games, if not 9, before the final. So I reckon it's you give him a month or so. Cooler, he's not bad at fullback. He probably obviously doesn't have the passing game. He's got an electric running game. Make him do the grunt work. Use Turbo like he was used in Origin, let him float a little bit, but conserve him. Playing at center for the next month, get him into fullback probably a month before the finals. And with the comp being as close as it is, they've got a legitimate shot, just like everyone else does, of top 4 as well. So I know it's not specifically about this game, but I'm really genuinely keen to hope that they keep him at center, but also see how he develops over the next few weeks.
So on the note of Tom Trbojevic, he made his return, played center the same weekend that Latrell gets injured and was obviously going to be there for the Blues. Has never lost a game for New South Wales, made the triumphant return to game 2, where we know New South Wales had a resounding victory. So Madge was not going to change his team, but that was a forced change. Turbo has actually been in camps because he's considered, one of the Blues' elite players. His brother's the captain as well. So it was so logical that if he came out and had a big game, he'll slot straight in there. And I was saying, hang on, that could be a bit harsh on Bradman Best, who's probably should be next cab off the rank in terms of form. I'm just reading my phone, checking my phone. It sounds to me like Best is going to get that spot, that left center spot, not Tom Trbojevic. And I agree with that call. I was going to say, without knowing that news, Turbo didn't show me enough. He was blowing, which you'd expect, 30 minutes in, but he was blowing because the match fitness wasn't there. And Turbo really didn't threaten much, and that's one of the reasons why I feel the Cowboys deserve to win this. Now, put Matty O'Keefe's comment up on the screen. So here's the thing. I backed the Cowboys. They were my best bet. So, of course, I'm going to see it through that lens. Matty O'Keefe is a staunch Manly fan, and he bet Manly, right? And so congrats to Matty because he got the win on a personal level and a betting level as well. And so we kind of argued. We already had it out in the comments. But so I want to try and make Matty's case for him. But here's mine. Okay. The Cowboys are down 18-6. They still fight back to 18 all and had the ascendancy, had the running, had the momentum in the final 20 minutes, and I felt like probably should have just gone on with it and win by a try. Of course, that's what I wanted, but it looked like that's what was going to happen. The one advantage I gave the Seagulls on Tuesday was Cherry Evans. And to be honest, he probably was the difference, the reason the Seagulls won. A surgical pass for the opening try, other moments that just turned the momentum with a line break assist, obviously ends up kicking the winning field goal. But once it comes down to a field goal fight, unfortunately for me, when you're laying any amount of points, and it's kind of cruel, I was laying 1.5, even when the Cowboys were winning shots at field goal, I couldn't win. I was hoping they missed.
Yeah.
You can get a penalty, like a penalty can be awarded, as the Seagulls got with a few minutes to go. A 2-point field goal can be kicked, as Drinkwater did expertly, and Val Holmes actually had a completely clear shot at a 2-point field goal. Like, that would have been an amazing way to win a best bet. It wasn't to be. Chad Townsend had 4 or 5 pretty clear-cut shots at a field goal to win it. He considers himself a bit of an Iceman. Look, I have to go off a little bit on a Chad Townsend rant here, because I just want to remind Cowboys fans, you had a guy called Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow. Your spine right now could be Origin player Reece Robson, Origin player Dearden as your 7, Origin caliber player Drinkwater as your 6, and Origin star Hamiso at fullback. It could be, but you chose to give $700,000 a year to Chad Townsend, and you let Hammer walk. Okay, and Townsend, awesome, creates content, right? So do I. Okay, and he's doing it at a totally different level. But if you're gonna put out weird videos where you time lapse record yourself and you're gonna tell everyone how good you are at golf, you also have to be good at what you do. You have to be good at goal kicking when you're the backup goal kicker. And last year, he took the goal kicking reins for a few games, and he was hopeless. And you have to be able to ice the moment with the field goal. But look, in any one moment, a player can miss and a player can have a bad night. But what gets me more than anything is that it is a certain try for the Cowboys. And they've broken the line, and the ball goes to Townsend, and he literally only has to catch it and put it down, which any civilian, any person off the street would score, let alone an NRL player. And he drops it cold. And I know he dropped it because in his head, he couldn't wait to do his try July celebration because he already had it planned, because he actually did score later in the game, and of course wanted to do his rehearsed golf swing. Well, that's great, Chad, but we don't need that, that fancy celebration. But what we do probably need is 6 points, because that could be the difference between making the finals and not making it, So there's 6 points just butchered. There's a forward pass call that denies a Nanai try from McLean. It wasn't a forward pass. There were Manly players all around it. Not one even appealed. Hero ref, 2 players running at full speed, is going to call a forward pass that's not even forward. Yes, Matty O'Keefe's going to tell me that Manly made a break and scored a try for forward pass. Pass went 3 meters forward. I don't even know if that would have scored if Saab didn't throw it that far forward. But okay, you did butcher a try there. Well, the Cowboys made a clean line break, and Drinkwater, who's usually so good at executing, unlike Saab, somehow missed Val Holmes. So I think they both exchanged bomb tries, but I'm talking about a certain 12 that the Cowboys could have had earlier in the game. And it ended up coming down to golden point at 87 minutes in. And that's not to mention Garrick's been really inconsistent with his goal kicking this year and made every conversion, like a couple from the sideline. And let's not forget that Manly's final try too was an intercept length of the field return, where it was actually the Cowboys attacking. So as I said, I can't win all the tight ones. Of course, it hurt me a little bit, and that's just how I see it. And you can definitely accuse me of not giving enough credit to Manly. They still deserve it. They were there to give themselves a chance to win, and the class of a guy like DCE, who's just ageless, got him over the line. I'm not trying to say Manly didn't deserve it, but I do feel like the Cowboys, you play that game again, I think the Cowboys are the better team and should have done more, but they've only got themselves to blame. Is there anything else you saw there, or should we move to today's games?
No, not about the game, but I'll back you up here. So you're not the only one that has an issue with Chad Townsend. A bit of content stuff. I saw there's a quote by Paul Gallen where he says, "Look, I know we won the 2016 Premiership together, but I'm not the biggest fan of Chad Townsend." So clearly it's not just you that has a bit of an issue with Chad Townsend.
Ryan says he agrees with my breakdown. Nothing but pancakes. The penalty goal gave the best bet a bit of hope. They couldn't go for a 1-point field goal anymore. That's true. When the Cowboys were down 2, it wasn't that different to me as when they were level. But there was also a moment where the Cowboys were setting up for a field goal after already having missed a few, and they dummied it and went short. And I think it was Finney Furiaki came so close. Like, it'll happen. If I'm catching plus 2.5 or something and a game goes to golden point, I don't feel safe. I know there'll be a try out of nothing, and it's happened before, and I've seen the Cowboys do it. But when I'm laying 1.5, that's never going to happen. So,
Man,
sure,
so I just got to say, this feels like PTSD because I tipped Finney Fuyaki at 34's last try scorer because he comes on and plays on the edge. So when that happens, I was absolutely crushed. So it's great talking about it again. It's very therapeutic.
Yeah, that's part of this Sunday show. You do get and again, like people that don't like me, I guess you don't like me, but you don't have to watch the show every week. But they'll just see it as me just purely like making excuses. But it is me just venting what really frustrated me this week. And I'll try and talk about the things that went my way and the things I enjoyed too, which I happily can get to for Knights Raiders. But there was a game earlier today too. Roosters 42 beat the Dragons 12, and I had a lean to the Dragons in this one. I think people know I really like the Roosters, and I think that they're in a purple patch at the moment. So I just said I won't go against the Roosters, but I thought the line was too high. So I'm glad I did not play against the Roosters because they blew out St. George in the end. Although at one point in the second half, after the Dragons scored, it was 14-12, and it promised to be a great game. And that was a try. I'm trying to think now. Who was it? Was it Tues?
I've got the
Left
scores in front
wing,
of me.
and Radley tried to stop him by headbutting him and actually got concussed, and he was out. Like, it looked like it was game on, but this Roosters side just right now running hot. Bria Hargraves breaking the all-time club caps record and getting a sin bin, of course. But the other thing that stood out to me is, one of the form players in the competition, Sam Walker, and has it on a string and set up a couple of tries in this game, stepping in field on the final tackle, but then kicking back out including on the wrong foot. So right foot step infield, left foot kick out to a second rower, and then the mirror, the left foot step in, right foot kick to a second rower, setting up Radley and Crichton. He's doing special things. The game is slowing down for Sam Walker, and keeps playing like that. It just continues to show you that the Roosters are a legit premiership threat. Along with Melbourne, who's got good players to come back in, the best chance of stopping Penrith winning 4 in a row, in my opinion.
Yep. Hey, I'm really sorry. I can't add too much for this one because I only caught a few minutes of it. I was actually out for lunch today. One quick note, though. I'm looking at the Roosters and the Dragons. So, look, the Dragons, a lot of people probably expected them to be bottom 2 or 3 in the preseason based off the squad that they had. Mm-hmm. So I think the fact that they were in the 8 before this and now they're 9th, that's actually, if you're a Dragons fan, like, you couldn't have hoped for that much more before the season. But I'm really sorry because I can't remember who tipped this, but I'm pretty sure it was in TryPod. If not, it was on the Wiki Discord. But a few weeks ago, someone found a really good price for, was it Roosters minor premiership? Do you remember this tip by any chance?
Roosters minor premiership. I saw someone tipped it this week in the group, and it was paying $8.
Yeah,
I was looking at the market. To me, I thought it would be between Melbourne and Penrith when I looked at it, but the post this week, I'll see if I can bring it up. It was Matty Simmons, I believe, and he was saying Roosters need to catch both Penrith and Melbourne by 2 wins. And to me, catch them by 2 is easier said than done because those teams don't lose many games. But Penrith and Melbourne do play each other at some stage later in the comp. I think the winner of Penrith Melbourne later in the comp probably becomes minor premiership. But talking about value, it's not a bad time to get on the Roosters. They just lost Manu, but they will get back Swalei from that suspension, and Manu's not out for the season. So when it all comes together, the Roosters, they're as strong as any team on paper.
Yeah, and it actually worked out really well for them because Manu it was meant to be out for a month, but that only includes like 3 NRL games, and it's one of those where like I saw a meme by someone about like how Nathan Cleary, they were saying that it's a coincidence that he keeps missing games or whatever, right? Like, so like the joke aside,
he's had injuries or suspensions like towards the back end of the year every year, but it hasn't really hurt Penrith because other players get more responsibility, they step up, and then Cleary comes in, fit as a fiddle, and leads them to premierships. It happens every year. It could happen again this year.
Yeah, so I was actually going to say with the Roosters, like you look at their forward pack and it is stacked. Like they're like Angus Crichton was playing number 19 or 20 in the early rounds, etc., etc. I won't go on about that. But I think the really interesting note, and as I said, I didn't watch the game, but just more of a general note, is like the Roosters had Jennings and Stili Tupanua in the centers, I think. So not only they're missing Joseph Manu, not only they're missing Stuart Lee, they're also missing Ponga as well. So they're missing like three potential centers, and they're going with Jennings and Stili Tupanua, and obviously like smash the Dragons. But I think that actually could be a really good sign when it's coming closer to the finals. And yeah, you get Suoli back, as you just mentioned, then you get Manu back. You got Ponga as that backup in that back five as well. So I think and I'm just very quickly looking at the points difference, 225, and the Panthers and the Storm are 116 and 125. So they've essentially got a game up on them there.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. The Roosters' points differential is like 100 better than anyone else. And obviously, if they caught those teams, that be even greater. And it says a lot. Like that was their weakest backline they've probably fielded this year, and they still put up 42. And the Dragons are not pushovers. And the Dragons held the Dolphins to like 6 points a week ago. Yeah, I know the Dragons are hot and cold, but the Dragons should have definitely been up for this game and had revenge on their minds because the Roosters put 50 or 60 on them on Anzac Day. I think it was closer to 60. So that's roughly 100 points the Roosters have hung on the Dragons, and you talk about things working out perfectly for them. Well, Teddy's still one of the better fullbacks in the comp, but Edwards deserving that spot is great for the Roosters because it's kept Teddy out of a couple of massive origins. And if Teddy didn't get called into origin camp for game one, maybe that's the difference and they win that Sunday arvo against the Cowboys too. And then they'd be even closer. But I don't think the Roosters really care whether they finish 1, 2, 3, 4. But as long as they're in the top 4, they're a legit threat. And, I've said this for quite a while now, and you're not going to think any different after this weekend. And the final game today was Knights 16 beating the Raiders 12. And that was sweet for me because my best bet was Knights minus 3.5. And the Raiders got the opening try, but the Knights then held a lead, a 10-point lead, 16-6 into the second half. And I think the turning point that really made it a nervous, and as someone in the comments said, painful final kind of 10-15 is the Knights seemed to be ready to run over the Raiders. Canberra was finding Ponga hard to deal with. He definitely made a successful return. I would pick him for Queensland for what it's worth. I would pick him off the bench, Callum Ponga, in the position that Cobbo had in game one, because I think Ponga can cover your halves, your fullback. I'd even throw Ponga on a wing. He'd do a job for you. If you lose a centre, I'm saying Cobbo should take Cobbo should take Xavier Coates' spot, but actually Talangi's out too, so maybe Gagai's in there. In any case, a Gagai or a Cobbo can obviously move into centres, so that's what I'd do. I think you want to pick players that can generate something for you in a moment and that scare New South Wales, and I think Ponga does that, and I think the prospect of having like a Walsh and a Ponga on the field at the same time is exciting for a Queenslander. So, look, Ponga didn't have a perfect game. In fact, he had a few mistakes, but it looked like the Raiders might run out of puff until a crazy kind of one-handed intercept by Elliott Whitehead when the Knights look destined to score. And again, the Knights are up 10, look like they're about to score, but no, it's an Elliott Whitehead intercept, similar to what he did against Manly, and the game changed there. If you recall, a 20-point lead was overcome, and he found the right man, Kyle Weeks, and he took it the distance, and suddenly it's a 4-point game, and the Raiders went bloody close, including a minute to go, a touch and go grounding that had to go to the bunker, and they found a little knock on against Xavier Savage. And the Knights hang on and win by exactly 4. Boy, that is sweet when you laid 3.5 points. The Raiders, like in the nicest possible way, they've always been pretenders. They're a team that won some games that made people say that they were a top 8 caliber side. In my mind, they never were. They being Canberra, probably never was top 8 quality last year, but just, won all these narrow games. I think made the finals one of the worst points differentials ever. And I know Canberra nearly could have won in week 1 of the finals, but basically Canberra's been overperforming. But what's more interesting to me is the Knights. They're a tough, gritty team. They've shown what they could do last year. They haven't had their best player for the best part of the year. Now he's back, and they're another team that's very much alive and can make a surge up the standings from this point.
I think the Knights are an interesting team. Like, I think I'll make a note again on a player. So Dane Gagai, obviously he scored 2 tries, and it's not like I'm trying to pick him out for that, but I think it's the way he scored those 2 tries. So that first Gagai try, it was in the 9th minute, right? It was one of those things, and this sounds weird to say, but it's like, it didn't look like he was going to score. So obviously he's the right center, and he kind of engaged in contact and then just like kept going. And I think the Raiders, I know it sounds a little bit weird, but it's almost like they were surprised that he kept going, and he just like powered over for a try. But I think what was even more impressive than that, his second try early in the second half, it was like in the middle of the field, play to the left, and then like the fullback just streams in and scores. And then you're like, wait, that's Dane Gagai. What the hell is Dane Gagai doing there? Like, you can imagine Ponga scoring that. You can imagine like 2 or 3 other players doing that. But the right center to score for that perfect little fullback organized play, I thought that was epic. So I think Dane,
I
I'm
love
actually
that. And you know
noticing
what the
that.
beauty
Yeah.
of that play was? I don't think you score that play if Sharp or Armstrong is your fullback. But I think the threat of Ponga out the back with Bradman Best outside him, all eyes were on them, and they did not see Gagai drift across from the right and take that short ball from Hastings. It was a beautiful set play, and I think that that's where it goes beyond what these star players do. When you've got players that the defense has to always worry about, it opens up opportunities for others.
But yeah, absolutely epic by Gaga. The other thing to note, I thought, by the way, so Adam Elliott was ruled out yesterday. So the Knights forward pack. So that Leo Thompson's been back for a couple of minutes, but I feel like
Thompson came back this week.
Yes, so sorry. Yeah, so Thompson's come back. The Saifidi brothers, one of them, or if not both of them, have been in and out due to injury, and Elliott was missing. So I feel like it was a huge effort by the forward pack just to sort of, well, like maintain like a 50-50 kind of contest. And also Tuala, NRL Tuala was ruled out roughly halfway through, maybe like in the 45th or 50th minute, roughly. So they had like a lot to deal with. Obviously, the week's try was like against the grain a little bit. No one saw that coming, but I think the Knights were just super impressive. And you could see it in Ponga's expression at the end of the game, like kept swearing, but he was just like, how the hell have we done this kind of look? And just to very quickly look at the ladder, they are a win outside of the 8, roughly. Just over a win. But yeah, so like, whichever team won today kept themselves in the race. And I agree with you completely on the Raiders. I've got a soft spot for the Raiders. I love Josh Popper and Tapine and the boys, but they should not have been anywhere close to the 8. And I got to say, like, they've actually surprised me in competing this well so far this season. But if anything, they actually should be getting Fogarty back in a couple of weeks, or maybe sort of 2 or 3 weeks, I think. So I think the Raiders will be that team where you just expect them to slip away because of their sort of experienced players like Papali, Rapana, etc., Fogarty back. They'll actually end up sort of surprising a few teams, I think. Then I don't think they're the kind of team to just give up completely and fall away. But yeah, like clearly the Knights are the team to be on if you want to back someone to actually make a run for the 8.
There's been positive signs out of the Raiders, like what you've seen out of Strange and the ability of Kyle Weeks. Like that could be a great signing there. Fogarty was having a career year. Cook has come in, got some games in the halves. You talk about the Raiders' experience and best players. I always think of you when Papali'i scored, and again he scored first today. I don't know if you tipped him or the bookies.
Nah, the price is too short now. It's too short.
Yeah, but that would have been a tip. You would have been all over the pass, scoring first, big Papa. But the only guy that played Origin for this Raiders team was Hudson Young in game 1, and he didn't play today either. So it was well below full strength Canberra, and they still got pretty close, in fairness to them. The only other Origin news I heard, because Queensland might keep it a little bit more under wraps, and they won't be official till tomorrow, but the Blues, I think, is meant to be official tonight. And so Best is going to get left centre, but from what I'm reading. And the only other change is, I guess, a Madge decision to actually play Barnett, who was 18th man for game 2, on the bench at the expense of Ola Kuatu. And, Manly got the win by 1 point. New Zealand lost by 1 point. But beyond that, I think Barnett's been outstanding for New Zealand this year. And I think it comes back to the fact that Barnett's probably more comfortable in the middle of the field than Olaquatu, and there's that much trust from Madge in big minutes out of Crichton, Angus that is, and Liam Martin, that he really doesn't want to replace his edge forwards. So he'd rather have a guy like Barnett who could play edge, but also, just gives them more muscle in the middle, which clearly is the way that the Blues want to play. Did you any other thoughts you had about kind of origin selections, how it might affect, I don't know, round 19 betting, or just who you think maybe Queensland may pick tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll just make one note real quick on what you just said there. So I'm a huge fantasy and Supercoach buff. So I was looking at the scores during that Warriors game, right? So get this: Mitchell Barnett, 83 minutes played in that game, almost exclusively in the middle, maybe except for late in the game. 56 tackles, 226 meters, 5 offloads, 5 tackle breaks, a try assist. And yeah, over 100 fantasy points, probably over 100 Supercoach points.
Origin debut, well deserved.
Absolutely incredible. So when you said they're leaning towards Barnett over Olaquatu, I think the only reason I would pick Olaquatu again is if you're legitimately going to give him 30 minutes at right second row and then shift Martin to the middle. If you're going to do that, then he's worth picking. But if you're just going to play him as a middle forward plotter, then just don't bother and definitely go with Barnett, because even this year for the Warriors, he's done both. He's played as prop, he's played as second row. Obviously, a much more experienced body, and just bloody proved he can play 80 minutes in the edge, in the middle. Just this week. In terms of the other selections, like the way that Joey Johns was talking about it in commentary, he was saying Bradman Best, it's a done deal. So obviously we don't know for sure, but it looks like it is.
What about Queensland? How much would you change?
So Coates is injured, right? Taulagi is also injured. Is that both wingers? That is both wingers, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So Coates and Taulagi is injured. Who's the third one? I feel like there's one more, or I'm missing.
Hopgood?
No,
Hopgood
but he was already out. Yeah. So Coates and Taulagi, I'd definitely go Dane Gagai. Like I've been saying it for about 3 or 4 weeks. He looks really, really good. You can just tell. Like he's won a Wally Lewis. Has he won a Wally Lewis, but also a man of the match or two? Like I remember he's won a couple of different.
Look, it's very hard to win.
Yeah.
Very hard to win man of the match from wing. I know Gagai's been thereabouts a couple of times.
He's definitely won the Wally Lewis medal once.
Has he won a Wally Lewis medal?
Yeah. He was like, he's that guy that they always talk about as like, oh my.
Incredible. And that's why they call him Origin Gagai, because he's been incredible at that level, incredible servant for Queensland. And I thought maybe his best had passed him, but he actually has had a really good resurgent year. So it wouldn't be out of place at all.
Yeah, I reckon Gagai for sure as one of them. They did say like Gagai and Cobbo. Like it makes sense. Cobbo was there in game 1. I know he played left center in game 1, but like he's obviously played a lot of right wing in the past. The only awkward thing about Gagai is that if he's going to be a straight replacement, he'd be on the wing, and he hasn't played there for a little while. And then the suggestion was Gagai at center and then move Val Holmes to the wing. And I think now that that Latrell's out, it could potentially be Gagai right center, Best left center for the Blues, which would be a mouth-watering contest between the two Knights players. So I don't think I would go beyond like essentially that. So like Gagai and Cobbo, I think like I'd sort of stick with that. The interesting one though is like I actually disagree with you on Ponga. So and I agree with you on Turbo, but I disagree with you on Ponga. I think with both of them, just keep them the hell out of it. But then like I do get the point that it's an origin decider. I just think with Ponga though, like he's coming back from a Liz Frank injury, which is like obviously going to impact his explosiveness. And also like you would assume that if he's playing off the bench, he hopefully is only going to play 10, 20, 30 minutes, right? But what if he's going to play 60 or 70 in his second game back from like 10 weeks off because of a Liz Frank injury? I absolutely love Kalen Ponga, by the way. And if it was game 1 and he wasn't injured, I probably would have agreed with you. Even if they went with Walsh, I would have loved to see Kalen Ponga on the bench. I think that'd be great. But I think I'm gonna go a bit boring and stick with the two new wingers. And I think Capewell or Kafusi, one of them I would drop for David Fifita, although all the media chat is he's not going to get in. But yeah, that's what I do.
Really? The chat's he's not going to get in? Well,
everyone's been saying he's not going to get picked. Yeah.
Billy's too stubborn if he doesn't put him in. I mean, I think Fifita should start for Queensland ahead of Sewer, and then you can move Sewer to the bench. I'm picking the players that I think New South Wales don't want to face. And I haven't seen Fifita do enough wrong. And again, he's one of the Titans' best on ground on Friday night, beating a top 4 Sharks side. So what more does he really have to do? And look, with Ponga, it depends your perspective. If your perspective is from the Knights, like this is the guy we pay $1.5 million a year. He hasn't played all season. He gets one game in, and you're going to rip him out of our team again, put him in Origin, in harm's way, make him potentially miss more game time. Like he's our captain. Like, is that the right thing to do by the Knights? And the same question should definitely be asked for Manly. Both of those teams, Newcastle and Manly, they're right on the fringe of the 8. One win could decide it, and you're going to take the best player out when he hasn't been able to give back to his own club, right? But on the other argument is, well, you're talking about can Ponga get through? He did it an 80-minute fitness test today, and he got through. And the game's in another 10 days. He'd be sweet. And whether he was used for 20 minutes, whether that secret plan that Billy had for Cobbo could be deployed for Ponga, that plan may have originally been for Kalen Ponga. Because coming into this year, Billy probably thought he had a fit Ponga and Walsh and was probably devising ways to deploy them both in a game. And he has that opportunity. And again, it's a tough question of how much do you want to change, because you're going to look like you're overreacting if you change the team too much. If you don't change enough, the result might not change enough. And Queensland were well beaten in game 2. But we'll talk a lot more about Origin, of course, in the next 10 days. I think you're going to join us, aren't you, for the Game 3 preview next, which we'll probably do in about 8 days from now.
Yep.
Got anything else?
Last point. I know we just went over the last point. I'll leave you with something like really, really interesting. So next week, Sunday, 14th July, Manly 7th, be the Knights 9th. So you're talking about Turbo, you're talking about Ponga. Layer on top of that, they're essentially $1.91 a piece at the moment. Layer on top of that, and we won't discuss this now because we've already gone over an hour, but if you do have faith in Manly to get Paseka back, to get a fit Turbo back to fullback, etc., this may be the exact time to bet on Manly to win the premiership, and I might just do that after this call, after this episode.
To win the premiership, you certainly you certainly love your long odds. I thought you were going to say to make the 8 or something, but look, that's actually crazy. I hadn't looked ahead and seen like Knights, Seagulls. It's hard to envision they both make the finals, but the winner of that game next week definitely could. If Ponga was playing for the Knights and Turbo wasn't for Manly or something like that, you'd feel Newcastle would win, but vice versa. And it sounds like Turbo definitely will be staying in Clubland because Best has earned that spot and is in the better form right now. And I think Madge has made the right choice there. But what will Billy do with Kalen Ponga? Because I'd definitely heard people say they'd pick him, but you're saying there's whispers also that Billy won't. So we'll find out. But look, as a punters, guys, obviously you get that word that Ponga's in, you probably auto bet Manly in that game that Nicole just mentioned. Or you hear that Ponga's missed out, maybe you do want to hit the Knights. It's that impactful. As Ryan says, Knights could lose 3 to Origin, and Manly might be the play at -1.5 because who's going to be? Because Best, Gagai, and Ponga potentially.
True, that's a great point.
I think that would be the case. And of course, Olakuatu's been dropped, if we're to believe that. And if he's not 18th man, could be available next week for the Knights. For the Seagulls. So one of those things. I could talk another hour to you just about Origin speculation, mate, but I enjoy the amount of time you have given us tonight. And even though I said let's aim for half an hour, I always say let's aim for shorter because if you imagine how long we would have gone if we weren't aiming for short. So it's good to get another voice in there. Hopefully I didn't talk for too long.
No, it was good fun. I'm going to go price hunting about Manly after this.
Yes, keep your eyes on that market, punters. Thanks for joining us as always, guys. And we'll be back Tuesday with the round 19 preview. Then an Origin pod next week. Nicole, you said you'll join us on like that Monday night.
Well, you can't see my thumb, but yes, thumbs up.
And Nicole always interacts and contributes not only to our show, but in the group and in the Discord. So final word, Nicole, just you can plug and let people know, where everyone can find everything that you put out each week.
Yes, as always, guys, Google Wiki Linktree. It's all free. Our Discord, our Punters Preview article, podcast, odds comparison tool, all the rest of it. But yeah, cannot wait. 10 days to go till State of Origin Game 3.
Thanks again for joining me tonight, mate. Thank you to everyone who tuned in too. Have a great week. See you next Tuesday. Lego.